So in the last video, we talked about desires and how we can change our desires by having more wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, which would affect our emotional attributes and change what we truly desire. Today, I kind of want to take a break from that for a minute, though, and talk about something that I think maybe resonates with a lot of you. Learning Torah is insanely boring. I'll be the first to say it. I get the value. I know it's one of the 613 mitzvahs. I know that it inspires you to do good and to learn more about how to do good and how not to do wrong. But the reality is that there are so many more enjoyable things out there. I mean, I'd rather play hockey or golf or watch Netflix or do a million other things other than learn Torah. And for some reason, every time I want to learn Torah, it's always like, all right, great, sit down. And then 3 minutes in, I'm like, am I still really learning Torah right now? Because I could do 500 other things. That being said, I want to explain the system. And we talked about this in the video on the truth about creation. We said that Hashem, in order to create this world, had to contract himself so that we could receive anything here that we can appreciate. Meaning, for us lowly creatures to be able to see anything in existence that comes from Hashem, comes from God, it had to be reduced so much in order for us to appreciate it, because we're not on the level. And what I mean by that is, if you had a 3-year-old who you wanted to teach math to, you might be a math professor who knows trigonometry. And you might really love the kid and say, hey, I really want this kid to know trigonometry. But if you start talking trigonometry to this kid, they're going to look at you like, what the hell are you talking about, right? They're not going to know what's flying. So what do? You start with numbers and you teach them how to count. And as they get older and older, you can teach them more and more. Because if you try to flood them with trigonometry right away, they're not going to know what the hell's going on. So you have to dumb math down for this child to understand. So too with Hashem's light. If you think of Hashem as the sun, for this purpose, just as far as that much light, and you tried to put that in your living room, your house would burn up. And so Hashem had to contract himself, as we mentioned before. Now, the way that he contracted himself, as it expresses itself here, is in 2 ways. One is the physical, which is the world and all the creations and everything else that exists. And another thing is the Torah, which is spiritual. Now, obviously the Torah is a guide of how to do mitzvahs, and also is a mitzvah in itself to learn Torah, to write a Torah, to respect the Torah, all that other stuff. But think about this for a second. The Torah is Hashem's wisdom. It's his knowledge and thoughts and understanding. And that's why we give the Torah so much respect. Because it's almost like a spiritual entity that exists on a physical realm. And so from that regard, if you look at how the tablets were carried, that were given to Moshe at Har Sinai were carried, they really carried themselves. They were almost supernatural, right? If you look at how the tablets were written originally, when Moshe brought them down, they were engraved on both sides, all the way through, yet no matter which way you face them, they faced forward. The writing faced forward. So they're like a supernatural thing. And so Torah itself is actually like a metaphysical item that just happens to exist in the physical world. And that's because Hashem's wisdom and his will are one with him. When we think something and then we reiterate that to someone else, once you've said those words, they're gone from you. Everything I'm saying to you now has left my body and my breath and is gone. With Hashem, it's not like that, because as Maimonides says, that he and his wisdom are one. And so with Hashem's wisdom, i.e. the Torah, Hashem is never disconnected from his wisdom. So the Torah and Hashem are actually one at all times. And we get the luxury of having the Torah in this world so that we can have access to his wisdom. And via transitive property, if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C, which means that if Hashem and his Torah, i.e. his wisdom, are one, and we connect with his wisdom via our understanding, so our wisdom connects with his wisdom, then by default, we are connecting with Hashem on a one-to-one basis. Just straight up, no fluff, no nothing. Now, how does this actually happen, right? Because we can't see Hashem. We're saying Hashem is as bright as the sun as far as his infinite light, and we would get burned up. So Hashem had to contract his wisdom into the words of the Torah. And for us to connect to those, we have to learn Torah. And at that time, our mind, our thought, our wisdom is enveloped by his thoughts. And so they're one. So you can say, wait a second. I get it. It's Hashem's wisdom. He and his wisdom are one. And my wisdom is connecting with his wisdom, so we're connected. But that's not really Hashem. I'm holding a book with words on it. How am I actually connecting? So I want you to think about this example. Let's just say, if you're a woman watching this, that Ryan Reynolds just shows up on the street, right? And you're like, holy shit, Ryan Reynolds is here, right? Or let's just say you're a man and some hot woman comes around, or some king comes around, or someone that just like in your mind is like, my mind's exploding right now. I gotta go hug that person. And let's just say that this Ryan Reynolds or whoever was wearing 800 layers of clothing, meaning they're in 50 snow jackets, ton of base layers. They would still be Ryan Reynolds or whoever it is that you're picturing, right? That doesn't change that the person is in there underneath all those layers. So if you got to hug or take a picture with Ryan Reynolds, it doesn't really matter what he's wearing, right? So you're still just hugging whoever is in there, right? You still say, I got their autograph or I took a picture with this person. That doesn't mean it's not them just because they're wearing all these layers. Hashem did the same thing. Hashem basically clothed himself in gazillions of layers because he's the sun and we don't want to get burnt. He doesn't want us to get burnt up. So he basically said, if you study my Torah, you're actually hugging me. It's like you're hugging the king at the time that you're learning Torah. So with that in mind, and that doesn't mean that learning some super dry halachic thing is not boring for you, because it sure as hell is boring for me. But it makes it easier for me to go about setting aside 5 minutes in a busy day, 1 minute in a busy day. I miss a day and I catch up 10 minutes the next day. It doesn't mean you're going to live your life in kollel. It just means that it'll give you some more meaning to realize what is actually going on behind the scenes when you are studying Torah. Now, obviously, I'm all for, studying Torah for the sake of positive action, learning how to be better, learning what to do and how. Just expanding your understanding and knowledge of godliness will allow you to have a deeper appreciation, will give you more meaning in everything that you're doing, and will make you want to connect more. But at the most basic level, even if you don't know what you're learning and why, and it could be any subject of Torah, no matter what, at all times, you are literally hugging the King of all kings. He's giving you a way for your mind to be enveloped by his knowledge, by his wisdom. And because he and his wisdom are one, meaning doesn't matter how many layers he's clothed in, you're still hugging the king directly. So think about that. This is the one who provides everything for you and the entire world. Give him a hug once in a while.